It is indeed my great privilege and honor to have been invited to speak to you to such a distinguished gathering, and I echo Professor Amengo to say that this is indeed my personal privilege to be joining such distinguished speaker at this particular forum. I also asked myself, why am I here? And Eddie has most probably given you the answer. If anyone wants to lay any blame for this current round of education reform, I'm sure that I'm amongst the 20 people and I readily plead guilty to teach the teaching profession and also to the parents. And this is not without good reason. I think the reason why I've been asked to share with you this afternoon is some of my personal experience and some of my encounter with the current batch of products from our education system as an employer in Hong Kong. Now, I'm not one of those big multinational corporations, but a truly local company. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is if you expect a good academic presentation or a very good speech, this most probably would be a disappointment to you. So what I'm seeking to do, ladies and gentlemen, is to examine what the business world had to face in the recent 2 decades to survive and thrive, and provide you with the relevant background to appreciate what our future workforce needs to learn, the appropriate attitude and skills to be acquired in order to survive and thrive, what I term the attributes of the 21st century workforce, and finally explore how the community can help nurture these attributes in its workforce. The world has changed so much in the last 50 years. Why I chose 50 years? That's from the time when I entered secondary school to the current day. As a man, I mean, there's no secret about my age, and I'm sure that you can count the age. It's nothing strange nor astonishing, as Heraclitus have said, and I quote, "There's nothing permanent except change. Change is the only constant, and change alone is unchanging." Yes, we have to deal with changes constantly in our life. But ladies and gentlemen, in the 40 years that I have worked in the workplace, I started my career using the abacus, and I would ask how many of you in this room still knows and understand how to operate an abacus. Please raise your hands. Not too many. A lot of people cannot do a simple calculation, simple addition without the calculator. So, within this 40 years, we moved away from the traditional abacus to calculators. And how many of you have seen this? This is a typewriter. How many of you can use a typewriter? Quite a few hands, quite a few more hands, because we're using the same keyboard. But from the typewriter, we moved to computer. I still remember the days when I was informing my colleagues that we're going to give everyone a set of computers to work with. And they said, "Fine, but don't take away my typewriters." So this is within the last 40 years of my working life. So what I'm trying to say is that in this period of time, changes happen much faster than what we used to be experiencing. The World Bank published in its report in 2004, and it said the digital and information revolution has changed the way the world learns, communicates, does business, and treats illnesses. In 1994, I took over as a senior partner of my firm. And suddenly I discovered that my professional and personal life had fundamentally changed. Very soon I discovered that the main source of income was no longer there. For those of you who remember, the very profitable conveyancing business was taken away from the legal profession. And what is bread and butter of a legal firm becomes overnight a liability. What it means is that the more transactions that I did, the more business loss I made. Professional services required by clients no longer the same as before. In my early days of practice, people would come to a lawyer for a property transaction, a simple will, or alternatively, when someone owed him money, they would come along and ask you to write a letter of demand. But in the 90s, all this changes. Most of my clients would ask me whether I would be able to help them to do an IPO and raise capital. And a lot of them would say that, look, I want to buy a business, I want to invest on the mainland, I want to move my factory across the mainland. So the type of services that they need changes. The market condition changed too. I have to immediately face high rental and staff costs. And then at the same time, I found that there is a short supply of quality professionals. Hong Kong being a cosmopolitan city, overnight we find that American firms and international firms and firms from London, what we call city firms, are here competing with us. No protection whatsoever. And then we have to face the reversion of sovereignty to China and the opening up of the mainland market to Hong Kong firms. And then there's an increased amount of traveling associated with meetings and dealing with international clients. And that's a huge demand of personal time, which otherwise would be sent to the family. So I have to face a lot of new challenges. And ladies and gentlemen, 1994 is really the middle of my career, the middle of my professional life. So I have to learn to become qualified in new practice areas. I have to learn new laws, the basic law. I mean, before 1997, no one would go into court and challenge a case. And mind you, these day and age, a lot of the cases were actually ruled because of the basic law. New professional skills need to be picked up, and new soft skills need to pick up, and new language skills. I learned to speak Putonghua when I was in my late 30s. New mode of operation, new mode of management. All these, suddenly I found myself having to learn all over again. The question that we have to ask is, in what market would you be participating in? Who would you be serving? Through what channel will you be reaching your targets? And who will be your competitors? And what will be the basics of your basis for your competitive advantage? And what skills or capability will make you unique? Now, these are the questions that I have to ask myself suddenly overnight as the senior part of the firm. So, businesses, big or small, is facing the new challenges of getting ourselves ready to compete in the future. Two Harvard professors best summarize it in their book, which has now become a compulsory item on the reading list of all business schools. This book is entitled Competing for the Future, and these two famous professors say that in competing for the future, we must be ready to think differently about competitiveness, strategy, as well as organization. Competitiveness, facing this fast-changing world, incrementally better is simply not good enough. What is required for us to compete for the future is being able to transform ourselves. Traditional firms in Hong Kong, a lot of you would have known, firms which are in the same sort of establishment like ourselves, have either packed up, disappeared, or alternatively taken over by American firm. So it will not simply because there is fundamental change in the market, in the whole industry that we're facing. We are not unique. In fact, every industry is facing the same. So, to be able to restructure and downsize headcount to get smaller would enable us to be more competitive. Re-engineering process and continuous improvement would make the company better. But that is not good enough. To be able to win the competition, you got to be able to reinvent your industry and re-engineer strategy. I can cite you, and to be competitive. I'm citing you two very unique examples. The first one, for those of you who are living in Hong Kong would know, CTI, City Telecom, which invent the delivery of long-distance services. And that has made it successful. It changes the whole industry of long-distance call. And for those of you who follow the last Olympic game, Speedo reinvent the swimming suit, and that's giving them the competitive edge. What these two companies are doing are fundamentally reshaping an industry to one's own benefit in order to compete and win. So the significant factors that we have to take into consideration, ladies and gentlemen, is the microchip, the globalization, the China and regional markets available to Hong Kong company, the change in government and political system, the speed of scientific development and innovation. The microchip, I'm sure everyone would appreciate, has definitely transformed our lives and mode of delivery of services. And then internet has become the major medium for communication as well as social transactions. Ladies and gentlemen, I used to write about 20, 30 letters a day. But today, for many days, I do not have to write a letter, but I have to deal with over 150, 200 emails. So, Jeffrey Coven, a famous American writer, said that in the knowledge-based economy, workers will be valued for their ability to create, judge, imagine, and build relationships. And Jerry Yang, the co-founder of Yahoo, said that the biggest limitation we face is how fast we can innovate. We are constrained by how fast our brains can work. So globalization. George Cox, the Director General of UK Institute of Directors, said, and I quote, "The internet is possibly the biggest business change in our lifetime. What it means is simply this: anybody, company, or individual in the whole world can get in touch with, exchange information, and trade with anybody else in the whole world any time of night or day, cheaply and conveniently." So, ladies and gentlemen, our next generation workforce no longer competing locally, not with his neighbor, not with his classmate sitting next to him, but on the world stage. The China and regional market. Look at the map. Our market, Hong Kong, is basically a dot on the map of China. The opening of China provides a lot of opportunities to firms, companies, organizations in Hong Kong. But to tap on this market, I'm sure that those sitting in the rooms, which have experience of expanding into China, would know it takes a different sets of skill sets and a different sets of mentality in order to be successful. And ladies and gentlemen, not to say that, and the whole of Asia is available to us, and as a matter of fact, I think we're talking about working on the scale of the whole world.